everybody, I'm Stacy with Stacy's Organizing and Decorating for Life. I also have a webpage called stacyforlife.com. On this webpage, it describes what I do as a life coach, that I deal primarily in areas of addiction, codependency, and grief. But underneath all of that lies the need for building stronger relationships and healing through soul consciousness. So if that's something you or somebody you know might be interested in, then please check it out. Again, it's stacyforlife.com. So today our topic is forgiveness. Oh my gosh, that is a loaded topic, right? Because there's so many layers and so many levels to this. So I'm going to do my best with it to try to be able to help you all with that today. I asked a friend last night, I said, do you have any idea, suggestion for a topic? And he mentioned that, as well as, how people react to us when we do apologize or towards our forgiveness. So we're going to talk about that today. So to forgive in the first place is like, in the Old English it was called forgriefness, because we have a grief, there's an offense felt that is there, that either we've been wronged in some way, we've been hurt in some way, and been harmed, and the most original harm probably starts in our childhood, because when we're born, there's nothing wrong with us. We're these perfect individuals with these uninhibited spirits, with these childlike actions and souls, and there's nothing wrong with us. However, we may be born into, and maybe we chose it, on a soul consciousness level, maybe we chose, and it's hard to say. It's hard to fathom. I know some people no, I didn't choose this, so I understand. I'm not saying that we did. I'm just saying that we have more power when we think, well, what if I did, and what is there to learn from this? Because some of us were born, some people were born into families with, that were just hard, that they didn't expect that things were going to turn out that way. This is the thing, though, is that we have this unrealistic idea that things are so much better in other families, and everybody has their struggles, in all honesty and reality. And I'm not trying to dismiss anyone else's struggle, because everybody's struggles are valid, but it's all called for a healing on a soul level and a vibration. So we're going to go further into this, because on a mental level, on what we're taught, yeah, we're supposed to forgive people, whether it's through religion. Sometimes people are like, well, if we want to be forgiven, we've got to forgive. So it's just intellectual. That's what I mean by there's layers, because, okay, intellectually we say we're going to forgive, but let the person do the same thing they just did again. Then it's just pain upon pain upon pain. And this happens a lot of time in our growing up years, whether we come from families where there was abuse, families where there was addiction, families where there was mental illness, family where there was physical disabilities. There's different things that happen that may cause that disappointment, to where we have this hope and expectation that we're going to be realized in our goodness, and that we're going to be beheld, but instead we're forgotten about, we're dismissed, our feelings are not validated, and there's nothing to trust, and all of those things. There's disappointment upon disappointment upon disappointment as a child. So we develop these skills that we think are going to protect us from being hurt anymore, and everything. So when we get into adulthood, sometimes these skills no longer work for us, because it has that energy, it has that vibration to it. Because so even if we're saying we're not going to have this, we're still giving it so much energy and vibration that it seems to attract it for our own better and right healing. Because what if we were all put here to heal, so that we can help somebody else heal? See, that's what I think we were all put here to do. Is I don't know what else you think our purpose was. And that's why I say that we'd heal on a soul level. Because when you look at the soul level, there's a purpose. On the intellectual level, we can't see why or fathom why some of this stuff happens. And I understand that. But on a soul level, then we realize in our humility and our humanity that this doesn't just happen to us, that it happens to other people. And that through other people helping us, we were able to achieve and to still be here, to still realize in our purpose. See, because that's what we all want to know on a soul level. What purpose? How is this going to serve me? So that I can better help others and serve them too. Because we start accepting that there's something bigger than us. When I work with people, I encourage them to find those things that are bigger than us. Because we, in our material body levels and those broken spirit as children, We get all in our heads when we're all inside the building, all inside work, or all inside house. Sometimes we're taking everybody else's stuff on. Sometimes we just need to step outside and realize we're just a small fish in a big sea, and so that's a lot about forgiving ourselves as we get to that soul level. But how do we get to the soul level if we grew up in a house of addiction or abuse and all that, and we've developed these coping skills? Maybe we've become addicted too, and we don't even acknowledge it, because usually we go from one extreme to the other, because in our evolution and trying to heal, because we were all put here to evolve. And see, when you start working on your healing and forgiveness, you look at it more as an evolution than a victimization when you do this. So how are we going to heal? What are we going to do to change this? So if we grew up in an addictive family, and we may find ourselves to an addictive, personality, then we start working a program. And in this program, we learn to acknowledge and to realize what was done to us. We're not just trying to hide it anymore and shove it under a rug and say this didn't happen, or that it did happen and I'm going to be wounded by it the rest of my life. We say, okay, this happened. So we learned that what happened, by learning what happened and acknowledging that, we can learn how we chose to react off of it, hence how we might have treated somebody else and harmed somebody else, because hurt people, right? So we may have had a part in something that we did to somebody else to try to protect ourselves in our adult years, regarding from those years, because you always wonder, why do we have to go back to our childhood? This is why, because a lot of the character traits that we learned and that we built up to protect ourselves and defend ourselves are things that no longer serve us in our adulthood, that only hold us back from our highest and best good. See, so it all comes from forgiveness, because we're limited when we're not in forgiveness. And people tell you that all the time, but I'm trying to explain it to you how this works on a soul level. So when we realize our addiction and we decide, okay, we're going to make an amends for this. See, it's not saying I'm sorry, once again, just a blanket I'm sorry. Because we look at the wrong we did to others as a result of maybe what we went through, and we realize our innocence then. So we can return to that childhood state. See, we don't get to just erase that tape as an adult. When we talk about those old tapes, we can't just erase that tape and pretend it never happened, because it happened. So what we're doing is we have to rewind that tape. How did we get here? So we rewind that tape and figure out how we got there. Does that make sense? So when we rewind that tape and we figure out what happened to us, where we got where we are now, then we can repair that stuff in ourselves, and then that also enhances and gives us a better vibration in our relationships once we've healed that and let that yucky stuff out of us, cried it out, whatever it is, that we let that yucky stuff out of us. Then we can show up and be more authentic and present in our relationships, rather than live in the past fear of relationships and not having that happen again in the future relationships. Working through that soul healing lets us be present. So when we make an amends, we do so where we don't harm somebody else. So maybe it's a monetary amends where we have to make restitution. Maybe it's just a living amends where we don't do that again. And that's, I think, what most people want when you make an amends to them, is when they ask, how can I make this right? They just don't want you to repeat that behavior. And then some people, you're never going to be able to make it right, because sometimes we just chose narcissistic or unhappy people as a part of our healing process, so we just move on, So sometimes you're not going to make everybody happy when you make an amends. The amends sometimes is just, it's for you to clear your side of the street so you never repeat that behavior again. You can't fix those things sometimes. You just can't. There are people that are called willing participants. I learned that in my working of it, because, my sponsor told me, honey, they were a willing participant when I was acting out in my character, So then we get into codependence, because oftentimes in addiction, once we realize that we played a part in it, sometimes we start taking responsibility for all these parts. And that's what a codependent does, is they take responsibility for all these parts. See, they're going to heal. The codependent is going to heal through your healing, see, because they don't want you to suffer the pain that they suffered, but they're not willing to look at the pain they suffered, so they're going to just keep reliving the pain through you. And they don't realize that that's coming back on them too, so they keep showing themselves, once again, that low self-worth that they felt from growing up in that family where they had no control. It wasn't their fault they felt they learned self-worth. But as an adult, see, that's their healing process, is to learn their own sense of self and their own self-worth. That's the soul level of healing. Sorry, that was my grunge. So that's the soul level of healing, is to remember and embody your essence through rewinding that tape and going back to who you were and remembering who you were. And that you're just as valued as anybody else, just like the trees and the stars, like my Desiderata tattoo. You are just as valuable as anybody and anything else. To learn your value, and then you can lovingly say to people that you know that they're wounded too. You can see them from a holy place. You're not seeing them as that SOB or this or that hurt you. You're seeing them as a catalyst for your higher and better growth and good. Because they had to be present in your life for you to be able to leave that kind of situation. I know some of them are really, really bad, and I'm sorry for that. I can honestly say I'm sorry because I'm not responsible for that, but I do feel for you when that's happened. And so I hope you get a professional to work it through. If some people need the professional, I'm not saying that you can, just from me showing you this video or doing this video with you means that you're going to work it through. I'm saying that you develop this energy that will attract that right and perfect healing for you. And so when we leave that relationship, we can leave in a holy way, to where we've worked our karma out, if you choose to call it that way, atonement out, if you choose to call it that way, whatever it is, and you can lovingly leave that relationship in a different state, to where you're not going to go to the next relationship needing to heal again. See, because that's what we do until we do the healing, is we're going to keep showing up in another relationship until we get that healing. So once you do that atonement or karmic relief or whatever, karmic, you know what I mean, but once you do all of that, then you can go into the next relationship wholly. And I'm not talking about holy as in the Bible. I'm talking about you're whole. See, you're not looking, codependency is looking for somebody to complete you. You're already complete. You were born complete. You just need somebody to walk this path with you, to hold your hand. But if they can't hold your hand, if they're going to drag you along or hold you back, they're not going to walk with you. You don't need them. So hence we come into grief, and so we're walking along. Everybody in this life deals with grief. Everybody loses somebody they love. Sometimes we get mad at that person that we lost, and we have to forgive that. So the ideal is in the end, is that we're able to treat people in a holy way, a way where if it was their last day, we're not going to feel bad. We're not going to have any regrets. We're not going to feel like we have to rationalize and justify our behaviors like we did in our codependency or in our addiction or in our abuse or whatever it was that we ended up, in our life this time to get to heal from. So we get to treat people with dignity and respect rather than consider them better than or less than to be on that rung. See, even if they can't walk with us, we can say, okay, and wish them well as they sit on the bench or whatever it is they do in their metaphorical life, or repeat the same thing. We don't care anymore because we're moving up to another place in our life to where we are feeling good about ourselves. Once we get self-worth, it's not that we look back and look at that with regret, or that we look at that like it was less than or beneath us or anything like that. We can look on that in our past with love once we do that soul healing work. That's all I'm saying. Because when we have that energy and we don't do the healing work, this is what we manifest. This is what Eckhart Tolle says in A New Earth. It says, a person with a strong, active pain body has a particular energy emanation that other people perceive as extremely unpleasant. When they meet such a person, some people will immediately want to remove themselves or reduce interaction with him or her to a minimum. Because when you meet somebody working from their pain body, there's no false way. See, intellectually, we falsify an esteem. We esteem ourselves by just saying, I'm not going to deal with this again. And maybe we're not. Once we've done the soul healing, we can still say that. But when we, it's not that we're coming at it from a pain body. We, are able to set a boundary that I'm not going to deal with this. I wish you well. And so we're able to not second guess ourselves. See, because in our codependency, setting boundaries leaves us to second guessing ourselves because it doesn't feel comfortable when we first start learning it. But when we come from families, as I listed, like the abusive, we didn't learn healthy boundaries. So it's crazy that we should have an expectation, which is our biggest defect again in codependency, that we're going to know how to do things that are healthy for us because we didn't come from a healthy family. So how are we going to know how to do that? We have to learn it. And that means dropping that arrogance that we know or we should know. We quit shoulding on ourselves, right? So it's dropping all of that and realizing that it's okay to ask for somebody to help us heal with our soul. I'm trying to think of anything else that I might need to say, that will help you. They asked me to talk about, too, how another person receives your forgiveness. And I can tell you from my own experience that one of my pain bodies in the past was that if somebody, patronized me or talked down to me or acted like I was stupid, that would really piss me off, And so somebody did that one time. And there was still a little part of me that might have believed that I wasn't as smart as other people or what have you. Because somebody said something to me and I was offended. And then the next day they apologized. They said to me, "Stacy, I'm sorry you got upset about that." And I was still pissed off because I thought, that's messed up. That's a sideways apology. So I told my sponsor, and my sponsor said, "Stacy, you don't get to choose the way somebody apologizes to you." And I'm like, well, hell, So the thing was it was still an apology. And sometimes in our pain bodies, there's nothing anyone can say that's going to make things right. So, and, it would be false. So I attracted something in me to get me to work on that and to realize that I am just as smart. I'm smarter in some things and, it just doesn't matter. That there's always somebody smarter. There's always but it doesn't matter because I can learn something from everybody. That's what I'm saying is it's not about that. But at that time in my life, I thought that there was so many smarter people, and there are. But it's not a big deal anymore because I can learn so much from them and I'm not embarrassed anymore. So what that did was it opened me up to not be embarrassed when I don't know something, but I used to get really embarrassed if I didn't know something. So it just depends. I can't say how another person should receive an apology. It's not my business. So I hope that this has been helpful. And if you have any questions or anything you would like to discuss with me, I'm stacyreinick@gmail.com. You can find me on all social media platforms as Stacy Renee with an EY on Stacy, and Renee has 2 E's on the end. Renee. You can see it up here. And Stacy Renee 8 on Instagram. All right. Well, I hope this has been helpful and valuable, and I thank you so much for watching. And I wish you much peace and love, and I look forward to connecting with you again next week. Thanks. Bye.